Kotlin is something we as devs want to bring in and use because it, brings a lot of things that you said. It also reduces boilerplate. But what about the clients? How do they benefit from all this?
The first benefit that they can feel, even not knowing how it was implemented, is the reduction of errors that the apps are having, because Kotlin is safer than Java, not only because of the nullability, but because the compiler is wiser in several different ways that makes that the developer can commit less errors than when using a language like Java. So in the end, you are reducing the amount of mistakes that you can introduce into the code, because the compiler is helping you in way more ways than with Java, and this improves the quality of the final code.
Mm-hmm. So safer code, and I assume faster to develop, right? We take less time because all those things are.
I know Kotlin introduces data classes, and essentially, I was reading about the compiler, and I think it's really neat that it can detect null pointer exceptions at compile time instead of waiting till runtime. So it is a very, very smart compiler. Could you tell us, just shifting gears a little bit off of Kotlin and more onto Android, what's new in Android development? Are there any exciting features that you're excited to work with in Android 11?
In fact, Android 11 is like a very small update of Android 10. They are very focused right now into security, and most of the updates were into that direction. For instance, with permissions that are more focused into helping the developer detect where the apps are using some kind of permissions. For instance, the location or the audio and video permissions, so that there are not situations where the apps can control us more than we want. So in that aspect, it has changed quite a lot in Android 11. And also the other part that they have focused more in this new version is with conversations. They have added some kind of specific notifications for conversations for chat apps, for instance, and also the bubbles that we had it implemented in a custom way by several apps, but now they are included into the framework. Those little bubbles that appear on top of everything else, and you can have your active conversations in front of you and move directly to them. So these are probably the most impactful things that have been added into Android 11.
Yeah, those bubbles are great for multitasking. I was looking into that a little bit. It's really, really neat. So how is the evolution of Android Studio toolset helping developers? Could you maybe talk about a little bit about databases and build analyzers and kind of the new features of Android Studio?
Yeah, in fact, the latest version of Android Studio, Android 4.1, has added something that was requested for a long time, which is a database inspector, where you can see now in the IDE, you can see what the database is holding. But also, as you may know, that they have added a new library that is called Hilt, that is a dependency injector that is based on Dagger. They have also added a better navigation through the Dagger annotation, so you can move better through the implementations and the definitions of the dependencies, all included into the IDE too. And they have added also a native memory analyzer, so that it's easier to analyze the memory usage. So they are adding a lot of new things, even if 4.1 maybe sounds a minor update. They have added many different things. Another thing is that now the emulator can be embedded into the IDE instead of having it as a different window, so you can have everything together in the same screen. So it's all quite interesting, and they are moving really fast in new updates.
That's really, really cool. And then kind of just on the same topic of JetBrains, what other tools do you like from JetBrains? I mean, they created Kotlin, you know. So are there any other like PyCharm, WebStorm that you're a big fan of?
I honestly only use Android Studio because it's what I'm focused on. But I know that all their IDEs are really powerful in their own languages. So I encourage anyone who can try the version for their developing environment that they try it at least, because JetBrains knows how to do IDEs.
Definitely,
I agree with that. Yeah. So I think we dove into health a little bit, and another thing we wanted to talk about and address is Jetpack, because I believe it's like one of the things that helps a lot in development, reducing boilerplate, fragmentation, especially, and lifecycle management. What do you think about this tool and the whole effort from Google to evolve and try to centralize all these problems?
Yeah, I think that Google has been working really hard for the latest 2 or 3 years, because these all Jetpack libraries are providing a lot of tools that are really helpful for Android developers. Hilt on one side was one simplification of dependency injection in Android development, because previously we had to use Dagger, which is, if you have used it before, you will know that it's quite hard to configure and to use. And with Hilt, everything is much simpler because it's integrated into the Android framework. So with essentially a couple of annotations, you can do very powerful things, and then configuring it is really easy. And on the other hand, with Jetpack, they are doing great things, and especially one of the parts that I like the most is that they are now positioning themselves in things like architecture. That was something that they had always forgotten, because they don't want to take any voice into it, any opinions.
Mm-hmm.
But from a few years on, for a few years now, they have been adding more and more libraries and also articles, and they have been advocating with some ways of doing Android apps. And I think this is helping make the Android ecosystem more mature, and that everyone, or at least most of the apps goes in the same direction, and we can have better and richer conversations around architecture on Android, which I think is really helpful, and in general it's better again for the clients, because they will have more robust and more maintainable and scalable apps.
Yeah, I'm really glad that Google try to focus someplace and take an opinion on all these. Could you think about maybe other places where Google needs to make that effort still, that we still didn't get to, or do you think?
I'm not sure. I think they are doing a good job in general. Maybe even though they are doing it right now already, but maybe more tools to help Android developers understand how to use all these libraries. And because nowadays there are so many new libraries and so many new changes that it's difficult to know exactly what you should use to solve a problem. So maybe with more documentation or more high-level guides, it could be easier to understand the whole picture. But they are doing it a lot these days, because they are doing a lot of talks in events and also many articles. So I think they are going in the right direction with this.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So I want to just jump a little bit, Antonio, talk about your experience now, and just your view of the technology world. So in a world without Android, where do you see yourself? What type of role would you be in?
Honestly, I so interested in so many things that it's difficult to know. But nowadays I'm quite interested, for instance, in data science and how to take information from the data that we have. For instance, I see a very good opportunity to provide solutions for small companies and entrepreneurs. So some ways to be able to use that data to understand better the needs of their customers. So I could find myself there in the future if, for instance, Android disappears, which I think is pretty impossible.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Sounds interesting.
I find it like a good topic.
Have you done any machine learning at all with like different libraries like TensorFlow or PyCharm?
No, not at the moment.
NumPy and SciPy and okay, cool. Well, there's a lot of use cases for it for sure. And what have you learned as your time as a Kotlin expert in terms of like making you a better developer? Maybe talk about like design patterns or stuff that you've seen throughout the language.
Oh, as I mentioned before, I learned like many things when I moved from Java to Kotlin. For instance, a better usage of lambdas, but also data classes, shield classes, things that are now in many languages, but Java lacks. And it also helped me a lot in understanding many functional programming ideas. For instance, how to use functional operators over collections, which is something that in Java 8, for instance, you cannot do. You have to do it on your own. Now, after that, in Java 8 with streams and all that, things change a little. But also being more aware of nullability and all those things. And then when I had to move back to Java, because I was working with Java mostly for my whole career as a developer, I was using Kotlin mostly on my free time. But when I had to move back to Java in my day-to-day work, I found out that I was writing things differently even in Java, just thanks to all the knowledge that I had gotten from Kotlin. And then coroutines again are a big change or a big suite of mine, because you can do really interesting things with it, and that's something that even if you can have some similar solutions in other languages, Kotlin has like a more flexible solution that is really interesting to learn.
Yeah, totally. Kotlin's really good at helping you reduce a lot of that boilerplate code and changing the way that you think about the coding problem.
Changes your mindset, definitely. Yeah,
definitely. And maybe talk a little bit about the Android ecosystem now. How has that changed over time? And where do you think it might go in the next couple of years now?
Mm-hmm. Since I started, it has changed a lot, because, for instance, when I started, we didn't have Android Studio. We had to use Eclipse, and it was like a totally different environment, and it was quite harder to use, and the change was brutal when we were able to start using IntelliJ and then Android Studio, and then again with the switch to Kotlin, it was another huge change, and not only that, but also all the libraries that, as you mentioned before, help us work with all that fragmentation. It's nothing comparable to the environment that we had a few years ago. So I'm really happy to see how this has evolved, and for the future, it's a little bit difficult to envision. I'm very bad at these things, but I guess that Android will keep growing into artificial intelligence and all the things that are related to natural language, so that we can communicate more and more like if we were talking to a person. And I think that many of the efforts are moving into that direction to integrate the Android ecosystem and in general the Google ecosystem into our lives, so that they can capture more and more of our information and control our lives a little more.
Yeah,
for sure.
Speaking of the Google ecosystem, what do you think about the Huawei situation? How, I know developers have been affected by this. So where are we at right now?
Yeah, that's a thing that happened for political reasons, that Huawei can't now use Google services, and it could perfectly happen again to other companies. I don't know, like Xiaomi, probably not, because it's a more global company, but who knows, it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the solution was to create some parallel a parallel platform to the Google ecosystem with the same products, but created by Huawei. And this, on one hand, is a problem for developers, because now if we want to support Huawei, we need to cover both situations. But on the other hand, I think it's interesting because now if you use an Android device, even if Android is open source, you are really tied to Google services. And if you want to use an Android device without Google services, it's really hard. It's you need to do you need to change your life completely, more or less, in a way. And now with this situation where there are devices that need other services, maybe we find a way to live in an ecosystem that doesn't force us to live so tight to Google services.
More
maybe
universal.
Maybe it can help us in that way.
Yeah, definitely. Other ways to think. So just this last question, if you can, explain like on 5 in a phrase, maybe. How would you describe what you do? I know it's difficult.
Yeah, it is. I help other people to live the lives that they want to. Maybe that.
Very nice, very nice. Cool. Well, hey, Antonio, we're out of time. So that's a wrap. We just want to thank you for having you on the show. It was a pleasure having you on Sngular Merge, and we're
definitely
looking forward to the next time you come on. And it was a great time.
I really enjoyed this.
Thank you for inviting me, and it was an honor to be here. And good luck with this new podcast, because I think it's really interesting.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.